Hey everybody, this is your buddy Mike Messier here on One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan YouTube channel, One Man and a Camera Films, One Mike Messier, all the social media. I'm very happy to have an interview today with Kevin Anton. Kevin, if you don't know, is in the new film The Iron Claw. I've seen this movie twice so far. And Kevin, you play Harley Race, and I almost said Handsome Harley Race, but that was one of his earlier nicknames. The King Harley Race, the seven-time NWA World Champion. Kevin, first of all, let me ask you, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing awesome, man, and thanks for having me on. This is awesome.
Yes, and I'd like to thank Stephanie. I believe she's one of your representatives, and she put together this interview for us, so thanks to her. And Kevin, how's the response been to the Iron Claw, and specifically your performance as Harley Race in the Iron Claw?
So I'll start with the Iron with the late release, December 22nd, and then missing all the film festivals. I guess we didn't know what to expect, but since this past month, it's been crazy. I mean, just at the box office, the outpouring from people who were wrestling fans, who aren't wrestling fans, who are Harley fans, have been reaching out, and the whole ensemble does an awesome job. And especially Zach, he put so much work into it. He's got to get nominated, but fingers crossed.
I've seen the movie twice, and the funny thing is, Kevin, I'm a longtime pro wrestling fan, and I think the first time I went to see the movie, I was kind of like a lot of cynical wrestling fans. What's missing? What's not in this movie? And then
Hmm.
once I saw it the first time, and as a filmmaker myself, there's always that like second guessing. Well, I would have done this and I would have done that. But
Sure.
once I kind of digested the film and came back about a week later and saw it the second time, I think I was more geared up and more ready because now I can appreciate the film for what it is and what the story is without looking at the glass half full, like what would I have done or where is this person or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I think with wrestling fans, I watched a few interviews with you. You had some really good interviews, I think, with the Monday Morning Critic, I think was
Yeah,
his podcast.
sure, sure.
And you said you weren't really a pro wrestling fan going into this. And for me, I was thinking, I think this movie actually non-wrestling fans will probably appreciate it more because they get more into the story of the brothers, the father, the mother. I think the Pam character is kind of being overlooked a bit. I thought
Oh,
the
she's
wife,
great. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I
who,
mean, yeah, I mean, totally. So I I didn't see the full movie. I didn't see the movie until the world premiere in Dallas, which was I think the 8th or the 14th of November. So after the movie, we go to the after party, and I give Sean a hug, the director, and I'm like, "This is not a wrestling movie." And he started saying, "No, it's really a story about family and brothers." And I mean, that's it's hard for me to talk about like getting choked up because it's really not like I get the wrestling fans have their opinions but it's really a story about brothers and the importance of family and more importantly Von Erichs, you know what I mean, and especially having someone like Kevin Von Erich still who got through this, and now his sons are like back on the circuit, and that's great. And just I think it's really a film about tragedy and triumph without trying to sound too cliches because you've seen it and you know what
yes.
I'm talking about. It's not really it's not so much the wrestling, although there is a lot of wrestling in it. It's really more of a family story, you know.
Yeah, and I've done, believe it or not, Kevin, I've done three review videos of the movie. I've only seen it twice because there's so much, to me, there's so much meat on the bone on this story. And one conclusion I've come away with is this story, if there's interest, could really be a series. It could be a HBO series, a Netflix
Yeah,
series.
yeah,
And and there's other characters. For instance, we were talking about Namath. I believe his name is Ryan Namath, who plays
yeah.
Canoe this, but the real life Gino Hernandez had an unfortunate demise. I think in
Hmm.
1986. It's been ruled a suicide. Some people thought there was foul play. There's other characters like Gentleman Chris Adams, who was a partner and then feuded with the Von Erichs and then a partner again.
Yep.
And he had a young death and an interesting history. Bruiser Brody, that's featured in this movie quite a bit. He died in 1988. He was murdered by another wrestler.
Yep.
So if they, saying they in general, but producers out there, man, what a story if this thing were to be expanded into a series.
Yeah, I mean, totally. There's a million places to go with this. I think the Iron Claw. Getting back to that, it's just going to be like a catapult for more and more stories, especially like back in that era. The 70s and 80s, where I mean, it was just a different time. I mean, these guys used to, they did the circuits, the local circuits. So they would, go to one event, do their thing, be done, drink them beers, have some cigarettes, go to the next place, go to the bars. I mean, that was it was a different way, I mean, it was kind of cool. So I think just with any of the characters, it would be an amazing series with a lot of legs. It probably just keep going on and on. There's so many different great, characters back then. It would be amazing, I think.
Yeah, the territory system was what they used to call it. And
Yeah.
Harley Race, to get to your character, was the NWA World Champion. And
Hmm.
to sound like a crotchety old wrestling fan, that's when it meant something because
Yeah.
guys like Harley, Dory Funk Jr., Jack Briscoe, Lou Thez, they would take the title on the road. So a guy
Yeah.
like Harley Race would be taking that 10 pounds of gold, and he would be going from Texas to Louisiana to the Carolinas to Los Angeles, defending the title against the top contender in each town. And we see that represented in this film. And I've done some research on the Iron Claw, and obviously, because of time considerations, you've got a 2 hour and 12 minute movie that you're trying to tell like a 10 or 15 year story in this thing,
Yeah.
right? So basically, it's somewhere between, I would say, 1980 and 1983 is the match that you're featured in. Harley Race
Hmm.
defending the title in, I would think, the Dallas Sportatorium or Reunion
Yeah.
Arena
Hmm.
against Kevin Von Erich. And what I love about for you as an actor, what I was not knowing you, but just happy for you as an actor, you've got a really awesome, basically, I think a 10-minute block in this thing where it's like you as Harley Race, you're doing a promo and you're basically straight to camera putting yourself over and in that Harley Race understated way. And then we kind of, segue into the match, and it's
Yeah.
you versus Zac Efron as Kevin Von Erich. And tell me about that process. I know you had some help from Chavo Guerrero Jr. as the trainer, but tell me about doing this because it must have been a new experience for you.
Yeah. So I'll start with like the promo first and how I got into that. So Sean Durkin, the director, writer, producer. I worked on him previously on an Amazon show called Dead Ringers with Rachel Weisz. Rachel Weisz, excuse me. She's great. He was great in it. He directed, I think, 3 or 4 episodes. He directed me as a character named Larry. So I knew him from there. So basically, I got cast from this. I won't get into that. But then, like a week later, I got an email from him, asking me to please, grow my scruff out, which was real in the movie. And then he said, "I'm adding this speech, this promo in for you. Here it is. It's not in the script yet. It'll be added on, with the script supervisor. But this is what you're gonna do." So it was basically the same speech Harley gives on YouTube. It's like, I think it might be called Harley Gives the Greatest Speech Ever, something like that. So what I did was I just studied that from the moment Sean told me till, the moment I was on set. But I also ripped the audio too from the YouTube video, and I just put it on my iPhone. And every morning when I would go work out, go for a walk, for about an hour and a half, it was just playing on repeat for me. So, it was like for about a month and a half straight, this was all I listened to. Not all, but just in terms of preparation, just his mannerisms, his speech, and just going over his inflections every single morning. So that's what got me, to the point where I'm doing the promo. Then, which I wasn't even sure was going to make the movie. Then, with the Chavo part, we had to practice 1 or 2 days in Baton Rouge in like a little kickboxing arena. It wasn't the sport. It was like a little place which you would never find on the road. It's so obscure. So the first day I'm there, we're waiting for Zach. I didn't know who Chavo was. And All of a sudden, I think I go over to him, and the stunt person there's Hoda is there. He's great, and then he starts telling me these stories about Harley, and that's where like Chavo really got me into it. Because first of all, he's great. He made me feel comfortable, and he knew Harley personally, so he was telling me these stories about how Harley had a drive. So he had a guy in his front seat whose only job it was to hand him Miller High Lifes. So Harley was driving, and the guy would, so right there, that gave me like, oh, cool, something to do. And then when it came to the wrestling, I mean, Chavo took myself and Zach, who did an amazing job, along with our stunt people who were there too, James and Steve, um, and he really walked us through the script of what it was going to be. And like you said, you're right. I mean, it's really only one page on the script, but
Right.
it turns out to be like 10 or 12 minutes on screen. And it basically ends the first act of the movie. That's the first end of the first act. So, I mean, it was an amazing experience working with, Chavo. And then that was just the practice part. I'll get into the whole shooting part later on, if you ask, but it was amazing.
I would advise people that are on the fence about seeing this movie, go see it. I always like seeing a movie on the big screen. Kevin, I'll say this. I'm in Jacksonville. There's so many nice movie theaters here.
Yeah.
I actually purposely went to nice movie theater, but not the best screen and sound in town, and there was a reason for that. I wanted to feel like I was kind of like back in the 80s, so I
Oh,
went to
wow.
an auditorium that didn't have the best sound or the biggest picture because I wanted to kind of retroactively put myself in that
That's
mindset.
cool.
Yeah, and but I love the movie, man, and for me. Um, One thing I would say is some people. Let's get back to your scene for a second. David Von Erich, and I thought the guy that played David looked a lot like David in real life. The
Harris.
actor.
Harris Dickinson, yeah.
Yeah. So he kind of takes the shine off of Kevin as Zac Efron because at the end of the Harley race match, Kevin's kind of stumbling through this promo and looking for a rematch, and David kind of just swipes the microphone from his brother trying to save the day
Yeah.
because David was the best talker of the bunch, and that's why a lot of people thought David was being positioned to be an NWA World Heavyweight Champion, to beat Ric Flair at the Parade of Champions, and then of course when David passed away, that's really when the tragedies began. There was foreshadowing
Yeah.
with young Jack, but David's death is such a pivotal moment in their family's history.
Yeah. I mean, that was absolutely, and that was actually, there was a lot that we did that didn't make the final cut. For example, like the fight was on a little bit longer, like so where I actually get on top of Zach, Kevin Von Erich, and I'm choking him, and that's when David comes in. Like I'm literally just like crushing him, like Harley's just taking care of this little boy, and that's when David comes in, and he just starts, pushing me, and he basically punches me out, catches me off guard, and gets me off the ring. There's actually another small scene, which probably wouldn't have made sense to viewers, where I had a little interaction with Holt, who plays Fritz, because we actually had a history back in the day too, a little bit. So I'm walking out with the belt because I'm taking this belt, and Fritz says something to me, and I just kind of say "f off." You know what I mean? It was a cool scene, but I don't know if it would have made sense or time wise. But that's just a little bit more like sprinkles that could have been added, but probably didn't make sense in terms of the time constraints.
Yeah, I think, like, for instance, Kevin, there was a whole big thing in real life of the Von Erichs versus the Freebirds, and in the movie, those matches are represented quite well. One
Hmm.
of the wrestlers who played Terry Bam Bam Gordy, I've seen him wrestle for the NWA, for the Billy Corgan's NWA recently. But the thing is, with the family story, with the brothers, with wife Pam, with the father dynamic, there's only so much you can do in one movie. And for me, the writer director made a good choice with the wrestling that he basically put all the eggs in that pursuit of the NWA World Heavyweight title, which
Yeah,
basically involves you as Harley Race, the gentleman playing Ric Flair, and you guys are kind of the standard bearers, and the Von Erich brothers are chasing you guys and trying to win one for dad or win one for themselves.
exactly.
So, once again, if there's ever interest in this thing becoming a series, I would watch it. I'd love to take part in it in any way, and I would love for you to come back as Harley Race because I think
Thanks.
for my money, Kevin, once again, online with other wrestling fans, you see the critiques and the criticisms. I thought you did a great job as Harley Race because, as you said in other interviews, Harley Race, in a way, is kind of understated, yet he's gloating about how tough he is the whole time.
Yeah, yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's one of the things that I took from watching, and I think I even bought like his DVDs on his site. The one thing I got from Harley was that he wasn't like Ric Flair. He was much more like, he said very little, but and he was very still when he said it. So I knew like that was like, as an actor, you always try and pick one thing, one truth, because you can't do everything. I mean, you can't get every single nuance and everything, perfect. So I think it's important to pick one truth, one thing. And for mine, it was, Harley's, the way he spoke, and just his power and staying still. And I knew that I had to get that to capture that, or else it wouldn't work.
Yeah, I think he did a great job, and I really enjoyed the movie. Like I said, I've seen it twice so far. I'll probably see it a third time in the theater,
Yeah, go see it again before it leaves theaters. I just saw it
yeah,
Friday again.
nice. And then, you know what? I got to say this. I'll give you guys credit, the distributors, because they had a lot of confidence in this movie because coming out December 22nd of 2023, you're going right in the lion's den. This is when the big boy movies are coming out, the Aquaman 2, all the, Wish from Disney, all the movies that are looking for Academy Awards or Golden Globe nominations or anything like that. This is when those movies get released. So, I mean,
Yep.
the studio and the distributor had a lot of confidence in this film to go into Christmas week battling these other gigantic film releases.
Absolutely. I mean, not only just being part of it, but and the process, but being a fan and seeing it. I mean, it's, to me, it's one of the best movies of the year. I mean, just in terms of every single facet of it, the story, the way it's shot by Mateus, and I mean, it's just the editing, the mixing, the fight scenes, and keep in mind too, this was shot on film. This wasn't shot on digital. So that's another whole new nuance, which it gives you that gritty feel. And just, not to get off topic, but how about the beginning when the
Yeah.
lights just go up? And not to be a spoiler, but anyone watching this, go see it. The lights go up on the sportatorium, and then you're just thrust into that opening scene. I mean, it was great.
The introduction of the song Tom Sawyer, which was yeah,
Yeah,
by Rush, which was Kerry Von Erichsen, how they intertwined. Mike was the musician,
yeah,
and I do know that there's a big controversy among some wrestling fans that the Chris Von Erich character basically
sure.
was kind of merged into Mike Von Erich. I made a suggestion, not knowing what the writer director did. I thought maybe they could have called the character Michael Chris and then just
Yeah,
called him Mike. But the reality is, I mean, as a writer myself, you have to respect the creative choices of Scott, the writer director, because I think he might be right. I don't know if the Main Street audience could handle one more suicide of a kid in this movie. I don't know if they could have handled that.
yeah. So no, I think Sean made a great choice because, I mean, how many more tragedies are you going to have? I mean, it's. I think it's enough with what was shown, and even that was tough. I mean, I don't know how you can't not take that in and think that's tragedy. So yeah, I totally agree. I think it was a great choice by Sean.
The other thing that and I'm just trying to address all the criticisms here because I'm trying to put this movie over. Some of the critiques have been, the gentleman, and I saw him talking, I think, with Seth Meyers about it. The guy that plays Carrie, he admits it himself. Look, how is he gonna put on 5 inches of height and 100 pounds of muscle mass? I thought the guy he had the face of Kerry Von Erich,
Yeah,
but Kerry Von Erich was 260 pounds
yeah,
of rock hard muscle. I mean, and in his later years, he was missing a foot. There's not too many 260-pound guys of solid muscle who can act out there. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
at some point, the audience has to kind of buy into the magic what if of theater or film and say, okay, so these actors don't look exactly like the wrestlers did 30 years ago, but where are you going to find guys that look like this?
Yeah, and to that point, it's just it's the Iron Claw is also based upon a true story. It's not saying it's a true. So, I'm not saying there's some liberties there, but you have to, use your imagination. And I think Jeremy did a great job, as Carrie, tremendous. So I agree with you. You have to, as an audience member, we just ask you to maybe suspend your belief for that 2 hours and 13 seconds and just go on that journey.
The way that I've said it in some of my videos about this movie is, if it makes the hardcore wrestling fan who's looking for a dead-on documentary happier, just pretend that this is like a parallel universe of the Von Erichs or like, something like that, because the movie is so good, you got to see it.
Yeah, it's I mean, look, everyone has their unique opinion and their the ways that they feel strongly about, and that's fine. Look, at least people are talking about it, right? I mean, that's the great thing about it. It's art. I mean, that's what art is. It's an interpretation of something. So that I think it's great people have their opinion. I think it's great that they have opinions, and are going to see it. I mean, art and like this movie, it's made to be seen. It's a story, and I welcome everyone. Having whatever their opinions they have, they are. Everything's welcome.
I just thought it was really a great film, and like I said, I'd love to see the Von Erich story or World Class Championship Wrestling in general or 1980s wrestling expanded into a series. So let's talk about your life and your acting career. And Kevin, it's okay to say that you're currently in the Northeast United States.
Right. So I'm in the New York City area. Right. Right.
And when did you know as a young man that you wanted to be an actor?
Geez, I mean, I think it was since I was like maybe probably since I saw Star Wars. I'm going to be honest with you. And then I did plays in seventh, eighth grade. I really couldn't sing, but there were musicals. And then in high school, kind of got not involved because I played sports, a lot of sports. And I guess in college, that's where it really hit me. I'm like, this is what I want to do. But then, like anything in life, you graduate college, and then you do what you think you're supposed to do. So that lasted maybe 2 years for me, and then I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this full time thing. I'm going to acting school. I'm going to Strasbourg. This is what I want to do. And from there, it's the typical actor's life in New York. Waiting tables, bartending, living in crummy apartments. I did everything like that, and you just stick in there and you do the work, and you study and you learn everything you can about life and art, and you live your life basically. You don't just focus on I'm going to be an actor, I'm going to be monologues, because that's not going to get you anywhere. You need life experiences to be able to bring to the character. So I think everything that happened to me up to this point was exactly how it should have been.
Tell me about, because I looked at your acting reel from a couple of years ago, but you have had some co-starring roles and some spots on some major
Yeah.
productions. Tell me about some of those stories. And
Yeah. So I mean, I've worked with a lot of the I guess big actors in the past couple of years. Russell Crowe, Luke Wilson. I don't want to leave anyone out. There's a bunch of Rachel Weisz, obviously. There's just a whole list, but I've been blessed to be able to work with this caliber of talent on shows like Mysteries of Laura. I worked on Aladdin's Voice with Russell. Dead Ringers, which is great. You should go see that. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a remake of the Cronenberg movie. So it's just it's a progression, and we're all artists here. We're all equal. We're all just trying to do the same thing. We're all just trying to tell our own story. So, I think by doing the work, it's afforded me the opportunity to get to that place.
is there any project, like, for instance, I've written screenplays and stuff, and is there any project for you that you're hoping to get made sooner than later, like a script that you've worked on or a script that maybe a friend of yours has for you? Is there anything like that you want to mention?
Yeah, there actually is a script from a friend of mine, Carmine, who I've worked with for a long time. I was probably in one of his first films called The Beach House. He has a script, which I play a pretty big role in, which is going to shoot probably either before Labor Day or after Labor Day, and it takes place in Fire Island. It's a really good script. I don't want to give away too much, but it's something I look really forward to doing because it's a really cool role and it's a great script. But yeah, so that's what I'm looking forward to right now. And other than that, with the strike, everything's just getting back into motion with casting and the shows. So I'm excited to see what 2024 brings.
Yeah, we had a double strike in
Mm-hmm.
2023, a writer's strike, and of
Mm-hmm.
course a Screen Actors Guild after strike. And maybe we just talk about that for just a minute or so. I go to I'm in SAG after myself, and I go to a lot of movies. Like I go to the movies 3 or 4 times a week in the
Yep,
theater,
that's
and
great.
yeah, and I can tell you, Kevin, when the pandemic started, Jacksonville, Florida was one of the first places where you could actually still go to a movie theater.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, so we had maybe maybe 5 months away from the theaters, but I know that my friends in New England couldn't go to the movies for like 2 years. And I
Yeah.
was I was going to movies all the time. And for instance, Tom Hanks had a movie called News of the World that
Oh
I
yeah.
think was one of the first big movies to come back in the theater. And I saw it twice because there was not as many movies being coming out because everything was so screwed up with the distribution, right?
Oh my gosh.
And so what a lot of theaters started doing, AMC theaters, Regal, and Cinemark around here, they started re-releasing things like the Rocky movies, like Rocky 1 through 5, played 5 days in a row on the big
Oh
screen.
wow.
Back to the Future, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I personally saw for the very first time on the big screen Close Encounters of the Third Kind with
Oof,
Richard Dreyfuss.
love
Um,
it.
yeah, Jaws had a couple of re-releases. So what happened is, people adapt. Like they say that cats adapt, but so do people because now we're taking these 80s movies, 90s movies, 70s. The Godfather Part 3 had a redo.
Yep.
And seeing them on the big screen during the pandemic time, this became big, and they've carried that over even now because they realize we can pack a theater with people for Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but this new comedy might not be able to do that.
Yeah.
So my point in saying all that is to say this: with this 5 or 6 month double strike, you're not going to feel it right away. You're going to feel it a year from now, 14 months from now.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering if some of the movies that you and I might have enjoyed as kids are going to be coming back. And like you mentioned, Star Wars. Is there any other films from your childhood that you'd like to see on the big screen coming back?
Well, you had mentioned something. You had mentioned Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I mean, you could release that movie right now, and you could pass it off as being shot now because the quality is so good. I mean, it's just. I mean, I'm pretty sure Stevens. Well, he always shoots anamorphic 2.35, but I mean, just the lenses he uses, the lighting. I mean, it's so crisp. You know what I'm saying too.
Yes.
That could be released right now, and if people didn't see it before, it would be a new release. It's that well done. So, I mean, Taxi Driver, I would love
Yep.
to see back in the theater. I mean, that's basically like the Joker is basically the modern day Taxi Driver. I mean, just really good movies. Some movies like that, The Deer Hunter. I mean, I'm a big fan of story driven movies, which is why I think the Iron Claw is so much different than any film released this year. There's not a lot of special effects. There's not a lot of you know bells and whistles. It's a story, character driven movie, and those are what I like. And it kind of reminds me of like a movie back in the 70s or 80s. Like a Rocky or something like that.
Yeah. And the thing that you've said about Zac Efron, I agree with you because like I said, going into the movie the first time, it's almost like, okay, what am I
Yep.
going to be missing? Where's Iceman King Parsons and the
Yeah.
haircut match? And, where's Gino Hernandez and Chris Adams? And where's this? But the second time is when I really appreciated it. And to your point, Zach really does go bell to bell, so to speak, with this movie. There's the fact that he's kind of shy, he's kind of in the shadows of his, in this case, younger brothers, because he was older than both David and Carrie, and a lot of people forget that. They think because David was the tallest and that he passed away of that group first, that they think that David was the oldest, but Kevin was the oldest once Jack passed away. But it's interesting because Kevin Von Erich in real life and in this movie is kind of like the George Harrison of the Beatles. Like he's got all these big personalities and he's excellent, Kevin, in his own right. But when you've got your younger brother is going for track and field in the Olympics, meaning Carrie, and David has this natural promo talent for wrestling, and Fritz is this, kind of overwhelming father figure. Kevin is the one that was the glue and kind of stuck through all this stuff and survived. And really, in two words, the movie can be summarized as Kevin survives.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, one of the reasons why Zach, I think, did such an amazing job, not just the physicality and learning the wrestling, was really capturing the essence of Kevin Von Erich. I mean, if you know Kevin Von Erich and you know anything Von Erich, so you watch Dark Side of the Ring or any promos or back things on Kevin. Kevin was very shy. And that came across from Zach's performance. It was brilliant. He wasn't the best speaker out there. And stuff like that. He was unsure at points. Even the part where Fritz comes in after our fight, and he's like, why didn't you get up faster? And Zach's just like because Harley really beat the crap out of him, and so you really saw Kevin's not weakness, just the fact that he was just like, wow, this is really happening, and Fritz comes and says, that's how they test you. That's how it was,
Yeah.
I mean, so I think Zach did an amazing job portraying that, and I just really hope, that he gets through to the academies or something, because I mean that's a performance that just to me just can't go, overlooked. I mean there was just too much. It's just too good.
Yeah, and to your point, it gives me flashbacks to Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler. And
Yep.
no offense to a great wrestler, I'm sorry, a great actor, Sean Penn and Milk, but when people talk about the great performance of that year, it's always Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler. And like
Yeah.
I said, no offense to Milk or
Hmm.
Harvey Milk or Sean Penn, but I think even Sean, when he accepted the award, gave a shout out to Mickey Rourke, because it's like, how can you guys not give Mickey the Academy Award for this? And to me, Kevin, The Wrestler and The Iron Claw are basically 1 and 1A of the pro wrestling movies. And but going back to you and where you're at, would you consider yourself a method actor, Kevin?
Yeah, I would because that's what I studied. I mean, when I got into Strasbourg, I studied with a lot of great teachers. Irma Sandri, she recently passed a couple of years ago. Lola Cohen, and of course, I studied with Anna Strasbourg for years. She kind of took me under her wing. She had me over for her birthday one year at her penthouse in the upper, right by the park, and Al Pacino was there. She recently just passed, I think last week. So, yeah, I am, but I would also qualify it by saying, you know, method acting is not what I don't think people think. It's not necessary. It's definitely not. It's people. I don't think categorize it correctly. Like they say, if somebody's in character all the time doing this, character A or B, and they're not breaking it, that's method acting. Well, that's not method acting. Okay, method acting is using. It's based on the Stanislavski method of, evoking sense memory. You bring your senses, something from your past or future, whatever. That's what you invoke in the scene to give you the reality of the scene. So I'll give you a quick example. Like I have a water right here, right? I could be doing a scene talking about death or making money, but you rather than saying the words, you have to make that real somehow. So I could just be thinking about having a glass of water, but that's real. As long as you're having real thoughts, rather than just saying the words and listening, real thoughts. It can be, you could be in a scene on stage and be thinking about, man, I can't wait to have a burger later on. It doesn't matter because you're thinking about something real. And that's what comes across in performances. Because a lot of times I think actors might get pigeonholed where they're just saying the words and there's nothing behind that. So that's more method acting. Method acting is enveloping the character, bringing your truths to it, because nobody in the world is Kevin Anton. I'm Kevin Anton. Nobody in the world is Sean Penn or Zac Efron. You have to bring your truths and your reality, and intertwine that within the character. So that's how I'm a method actor. And plus, I studied method acting with Anna. But just on a broader note, that's really what it is. It's not necessarily staying in character the entire shoot, because that could be weird too, you know. But my thing is, if that's what gets you through from point A to point B, do it. But method acting is, I have to clarify that it does get some, descriptions where they're not accurate. I mean, method acting, it's you got to look. It's a complete process,
Right.
and those are the differences.
What I'm curious about now that you went through that explanation is applying that to Harley Race, because if you think about it, Kevin is playing Harley, and Harley is kind of playing Harley, because Harley Race, in 1981 or 1982, going into Dallas, yes, he is Harley Race, but he's also kind of playing the role of the world champion coming to town to defend against the local hero. And so basically, as a pro wrestler, you're kind of playing a magnified version of yourself. And there's characters like Dustin Rhodes plays Gold Dust, who's kind of this, David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust thing. But with Harley's case, he was kind of playing it true to himself. But still, if you're going to put on a robe and a belt and go out into a ring and have this match, there's a bit of, I don't want to say acting, but presentation in that. So in a sense, Kevin playing Harley, playing the magnified world champion Harley, how did you approach that situation?
So that's a great question. So I think one of the things that I did was, especially in the promo, because they were both shot the same day. It was a long day. I really channeled the car accident Harley had. That tragic accident. I started really channeling that when I was doing the takes on the promo, and that was my reality. Like, just because of the tragedy of Harley's life and that accident. I kind of channeled that while saying the words about the snot nose Von Erichs and the other my competitors, and how that's what got me through, and that's kind of what got, like, that kind of helped with my stillness too. Just having that in the back of your mind, and
I'm trying to refresh my own memory. Harley had a car accident that they didn't think he'd walk again, right? And if I'm not mistaken, did a wife or did a child pass away in the car accident, Kevin?
I believe both. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
unbelievable. And so Harley survived that. They said he'd never walk again. He becomes
yep,
world champion.
yeah.
And it reminds me of my friend Vinny Pazienza, the boxer, who broke his neck in a car accident and came back 2 years later to be world champion boxer. So I mean, there's so much things, so much adversary that people can overcome. And it's no judgment against those that don't overcome it, because the reality is everyone's got a different stack of cards they're playing with. Um, Kevin, what have you done stage work too? I would
Oh
assume.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I started on the New York stage. Yeah, I mean, doing off Broadway shows. I think the last stage show I did was of Mice and Men in Vermont, Northern Stage Theater. I was there for like a couple months. A great role. I played. I can't remember the name. I played the bad son. I can't remember, but I mean, yeah, I've done a lot of stage. I'm basically started as a stage actor.
How would you? Because I've taught acting myself, and I love acting. So my question for you, and other people have different answers for this, but every answer is interesting to me. How do you compare stage acting to film or TV acting?
So for me, it's kind of really simple. It's with film and TV, you let, you let your eyes talk, and I think with stage and film, it's more with stage, it's more of your voice and your body. So what I mean by that is, you know, I think it's more difficult to do film and TV because you have to convey what you're thinking in your eyes, and the camera picks up lies. So if you're quote unquote doing bad acting, it's going to show. So I think you have to be really, 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 you know, grounded and believable in film and TV. And not only that, also, with film and TV, a lot of times, let's say you're on medium shots or medium close-ups or close-ups, you move here or there, you're out of frame.
Right.
So I always found and the power in the stillness, being confident in yourself to deliver the lines make them real without feeling like you have to do anything. All you have to do is just be present and say the words, and everything else will come through. That subtext should be in there. So that's why I think it's really important to know your lines in and out and say them a thousand different ways, because when it comes time to doing them in a scene, a play or a show or a film, it's like life, how we're talking right now. Like the words just flow. So you need to know them so they don't hold you back. So then you're able to be free and have real emotions and real actions, because that's what happens in life. It's real stuff happens. So I think that it's extremely important for even young actors to really hone their craft and you know trust and rely in the stillness, because just that is power in itself, and it's hard for young actors to do, I think.
That's a great answer. One critique that I had an acting coach, Annie Mulhall, used to tell me. She said, "Messier, stand still."
Yeah,
like
yeah.
especially with auditions, I used to rock on my body weight, and she would always nail me like, "You got to stand still." She said, "You're such a talking to me." She's like, "You're a big guy, so
Right,
you don't have to go all crazy because it doesn't look right on
right.
camera." Is there any role other than Harley race that you really felt like? I'm sure there's been several, but tell me a situation where you really felt like in sync with the character, whether it was stage or screen. Like this character, I feel like I'm really into it.
So I would say that the last character I played on TV, which was I played a character named Larry on Dead Ringers, and he opens up the whole series. It's a diner scene with Rachel, who plays both twins, and then me, who's there as a drunk, and I'm rude, and then I come back in episode six or seven. But to me, it was fun playing this typical male from New York who's been out at night and is drunk and being rude, but not making it too big, like not being overly, just that to me was so much fun to do, because you really have to sell it and you really have to believe it, and that was fun doing it, especially with an actress like Rachel. I mean, and a director Sean there. It was great.
Uh, and I have seen that advertised on Amazon Prime, so I
Yeah.
will watch it. I've seen that icon. It's, Kevin, I got to say, just as an aside, we are in such an age with streaming
Yep.
where there is so much content, and and
Mhm.
not to sound like the old man yelling at the clouds, but it's like we could literally live 5 or 10 lifetimes and not watch every single great show that's out there.
There's a
Uh,
lot.
yeah, and so thanks for the recommendation for Dead Ringers. Right now I'm just starting to watch something called Schitt's Creek, this comedy from 10
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah,
I
it,
never watched it until
yeah,
2 weeks ago.
yeah. I've seen all of it, and it's
Yeah.
good because they go quickly. I think they're like 20 minute, the 22 minutes, because it's half an hour with commercial. Yeah, they'll you'll blow through them. A very good show. I mean, really good.
Yeah, and Catherine O'Hara, who's like
Yeah,
a
she's great.
she's like a national treasure, but she's not even,
Mhm.
she's from Canada, I believe, like from the SCTV group.
That's right.
Um, yeah, so I mean, she's just, and it's funny because I didn't know that she was in that, and I was wondering whatever happened to that lady, because she always made me laugh and all the classics she's done. And anyway, is there other, for instance, Intent to Live by Larry Moss, is probably my, that's like, I always recommend three acting books for people, Audition by Michael Shurtleff, um, The Power of the Actor by Ivana Chubbuck, and The Intent to Live by Larry Moss are kind of my three go-tos. Is there acting books or any like instructional things that you would recommend to other actors out there?
So Lee has a couple of books. Lee Strasberg, Stanislavski, um, uh, and then there's one by Stella Adler and Meisner. I would recommend reading all those for young actors, because none of them are right, none of them are wrong. So when like you brought up method before, I think once you do methods of that, you develop your own method. So yes, I implied method acting because I was trained that way, but once you become a pro, you develop your own method, and whatever it takes to get you where you're going to go, that's what you need to do. So these acting, books are great. I think they're great starters for people, because I think the most important thing you need as a young actor or any actor is discipline, and you need to have structure, because those are important things. Because you're going to be in a very what seems like a very unstructured world. It's make believe. So you have to be grounded and have that ability to replicate what you did on stage or on screen every single time, every take. So I think that's where actors need training and to read books like that and then put that away. Have that in the back of your head. You have read them, then do the work. And
Right.
when I do say the work, I mean do plays, do student films, get into films, because that's where you get all your experience, your knowledge. Watching people setting up camera or doing lighting, you know, um, working with scripts, script supervisors, costumers. You have to experience all this stuff because that's going to make you a better performer and a better actor.
Yeah, well said. And I think kind of going back to what you said at the beginning, I think in one of the acting books I had somewhere, I think Jack Nicholson wrote the forward to one of these books, and he said something to the effect of, "The method is whatever works." You
Whatever
know?
works. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's exactly right. So, yes, have training, and yes, you've been through this stuff. Yes, you've been through exercises in class, but then once you're there, you forget that. And I don't mean you forget it like you block it out. It should be ingrained in you. It should
Right.
be like second nature. It's like playing sports. Throwing a baseball or a football and catching it. That should be second nature by the time you get to work. So whatever gets you there is what it is what Nicholson I think is saying.
I think he said, yeah, I think you're right. And it reminds me there are some parallels with pro wrestling and acting. And one thing I've noticed with some pro wrestlers, I'll just use him as an example. I hope he doesn't mind. But this really big wrestler named Luchasaurus, he's like 6'6". He's jacked full of muscles. He's got a great look. He wears a dinosaur mask when he wrestles, but his style, I call it choppy because I'm looking at this guy wrestle, and I can almost see the gears in his mind moving before he
Right.
does a move, right?
Right.
And they've used him in such a way where now he's kind of what they call a heater. He just beats up people from time to time. He doesn't really wrestle a whole big match anymore as much. And with some actors, if they're really starting out, you can see that choppiness. Like, okay, I got to think about this and then do it, and it's just got to put the reps in, right?
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is you see the thinking, you see the thought process, and that's what you don't really want to see. You can be like I not thinking about the scene because if you're thinking about the scene, it's going to show. Think about something else, but you're right. Like trying to get through that and trying to think about your next step, whether it be, if you're a pitcher, you're going to throw a fastball or a curveball. That's going to show. So I think that needs to be gone by the time you're ready to shoot.
Yeah, it's like that Jason Alexander on Curb Your Enthusiasm when he has the book Acting Without Acting, and they give
Yeah.
him a hard. But the title actually does make sense in a comedic way, but it is like that. You want to put the training in so that people don't see the training when you're actually doing it.
Right, because what people realize or don't realize about film, especially about film and TV, is there's not really a rehearsal process. I mean, you're in your trailer, and you're called to set, and then you have to do it. I mean, you might walk through it once or twice, but I mean, and for the wrestling was a little different because we had to stage that whole thing. But I mean, for the most part, you are expected to just do what you're hired for there, and that's why it's important to have that training or that confidence to be able to do that in front
Oh,
of like 100 people. You have the producers, executive producers, uh, the managing producers. You have all the set people, the crew who are always great, the sound people, lighting, just around you, and your job is to deliver. Usually in small spaces too, like so.
one thing, Kevin, is when sometimes you hear the person on the street or YouTube videos that they complain about the Hollywood actors or Hollywood. And my thing, Kevin, is for the most part, people misuse the term Hollywood because
Yeah,
guess what? Guess what? Like for instance, The Iron Claw was filmed where? Louisiana?
yeah, Baton Rouge,
Right.
Baton Rouge.
And how many films that we see, Tyler Perry's Perry Studios, The Rock's show,
Yep.
Atlanta, and how many films that I see that are filmed in Canada, And when people just throw, oh, I hate Hollywood, it's like, okay, how can you hate Hollywood when, first of all, you're probably Netflixing and chill 5 nights a week, and you're probably watching a lot of stuff that wasn't filmed anywhere near Hollywood. And I just get upset when people throw out these general terms. Yes, there's corrupt people in Hollywood, but there's corrupt people in every form of life. You know what I mean? So it's just, to me, I always feel like I have to defend the business in some way, meaning the entertainment business, because people really just don't know what the hell they're talking about sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of that. I also think what people see on social or at these award shows or whatever, that's maybe their perception of what they think it is. But I mean, let me tell you, you know, actors are just like everyone else. Zach's just like everyone else. Jeremy's, all these guys are, they're no different than me, than you and I. And you're just going out there trying to do a job and trying to, in this instance, create art. So I don't know. I mean, people have their opinions and can think whatever they want, but I think you're right. I think the same people might be going at night after dinner watching these very shows. So I don't really pay attention too much because you know it is what it is, and people are going to have their opinions, and you know I just think it's important, as members of the artistic community, to just keep telling stories, keep being relevant, and keep pushing the envelope. And that's all you can do, because if you live your life trying to please people or listen to what people said, I know me personally, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere. So, I mean, my friends laughed at me out of high school. But that's fine, because I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what my truth was. So I think people would be better off just, doing their own thing. And I don't want to say ignoring the haters, but just, you know, just keep your head down. And, as long as you're constantly moving forward each and every day in a positive way and changing and evolving, that's all you really need to do. So, you know, my motto would be just keep moving.
That's great, Kevin. We've got about 6 minutes left. I want to ask you just one or two more questions, but
Yeah.
I got to tell you this quick Harley race story, and people will see this in the thumbnail on this video. That I actually got to, if they go over to YouTube to see the original video here, they'll see the picture of me and Harley race from about 2012. My friend Sheldon Goldberg is a wrestling promoter out of New England, and he brought Harley race in. And Harley must have been 65 years old at the time, basically just to sign autographs, right? So the very educated fan base in New England, I go up to Harley Race for an autograph to get a picture taken with him, and I'm not sure what I was thinking, but for some reason I kind of wanted to see if like I connect with Harley Race on the internet. Like, does he have a website? Because I know he was running a wrestling school at the time. So I said innocently enough, I said, Mr. Race, are you on the internet? And Kevin, he looked up at me, and this was his response: "My wife is."
Yeah, I mean and that's that you sound like him. That's basically how everyone who, when they talk like him, like when Ric Flair talks about Harley Race, that's kind of how he was. He was a tough ass.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just the way it is. But
right.
I'm super glad that Sean included a character like that in the Iron Claw, though.
Yeah.
So.
I think like you were saying that I'd love to see if they ever do a Criterion release of the Iron Claw or DVD bonus, Blu-ray bonus, something, because these scenes that you're talking about, Fritz and Harley passing through the hallway,
Yeah.
knowing the backstory that Fritz always wanted that NWA World Title, and he never got it. He did get something, the AWA World Title. Fritz had that for a couple of months, but he never got the NWA World Title. And I think Harley was kind of the carryover from Fritz's generation
Yep.
into the son's generation. And I think the movie did a nice way of putting that in there. And one quite, I mean, we could talk about this movie all day, but it does make me think about stuff like the non-wrestling fans seeing this movie versus the, quote, educated wrestling fan, quote. You know what I mean? Like the different interpretations. And, but I think it's such a great film. And Dead Ringers, I'm going to have to watch that to see you on that with Rachel Weisz. And it sounds like you got a lot of good things going for you, Kevin. And in the last couple of minutes, maybe I should have asked this earlier, but do you have any advice for the young actors out there, the aspiring actors, people that are grinding away, trying to get somewhere? Anything you can say in three or 4 minutes for them for encouragement or advice?
So I would say do the work, stick with it. Don't let people discourage you. Live your life. And when I say that, I mean experience different things. Experience sport, experience art, experience food, because that's what's really going to give you character when it comes time to doing characters. You have to pull from these life experiences. So I think, other than focusing on just the acting, I think it's important to really focus on, you know, focus on the work. Just do the work, and trust that you're doing good work, and be confident, and don't doubt yourself, because I think that as long as you keep at it, something good will happen. I mean, I'm it, I've stuck with it. So I think that, and just be a good person. I mean, just be a good person. Be nice to people. And I think you'll do well. But I think it's important, and watch your favorite actors. Watch your favorite actors, and study what they do, and just watch how calm they are and how believable they are, because that's really hard to do. So learn from that and learn from everything. That's what I would suggest.
That's great advice. And I wonder if you had ever run across a gentleman named Barry Primus. He was my acting coach in Maine. He worked with Robert De Niro quite a bit. I think Barry directed the first Tribeca film called Mistress back in 1992, and he was up there in New York for many years. I wonder if you ever ran across Barry at any point.
No.
He's a good guy. I've got an interview with him on this channel as well. So, but Kevin, this has been a pleasure. If there's any website or social media points of interest that you'd like to shout out, please do go right ahead.
Yeah, no. So my everything, my handles are all Kevin Anton, all at Kevin Anton. Websites just Kevin Anton. Yeah, I mean, I would just encourage people to really check out the Iron Claw, because it's such a great story of brothers and a family, and of tragedy and triumph, and it's just so well done. I mean, that. Just so I encourage people to see it before it leaves theaters. I mean, it'll be on streaming eventually, but it's a film that should be experienced in the theater.
I think so too. And when people hear that opening riff of Tom Sawyer, they can think of this conversation. I'm trying to think if the song, because Kevin had a theme song too,
Yeah.
Stranglehold by Ted Nugent. I'm trying to remember if Stranglehold made it into the final cut of the movie or not.
Uh, you can check the playlist on Spotify.
Yeah, yeah, but I definitely know that Tom Sawyer did. But I mean, and they used when the three brothers wrestled together,
Yep.
David, Kevin, and Carrie. They used "L'Arrange" by ZZ Top as their theme song.
That was great. It was great, and the Freebirds were great too. Rick was great. Aaron, who played Rick Flair, they were all great.
The Freebirds can make the claim that they were represented in the Iron Claw movie, and the actual Freebirds are in the opening scene of the film Highlander from 1986. Kevin.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
there's footage actually from the New Jersey Meadowlands of the actual Michael Hayes, Buddy Jack Roberts, and Terry Bam Bam Gordy. The Freebirds
Oh, wow.
are wrestling Greg Gagne, the Tonga Kid, who's Jimmy Snuka's cousin, and Jumping Jim Brunzell. So the Freebirds from 1986 and the Highlander, the actual Freebirds to 2024, represented in the Iron Claw. So this has been fantastic, Kevin. I hope you've enjoyed this interview as much as I have. People, go see the Iron Claw. Watch Dead Ringers on Amazon Prime. And for those people looking to cast a great actor, Kevin Anton is a great actor. And I really appreciate
Trying
you
to do
being
the
here.
Iron Claw.
Yeah, right.
You gotta do it like this.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Your hands gotta
Yeah.
be over like this.
Kevin, I appreciate you, man, so much, and have a great week. Thank you very much for being here.
No, man, this was great. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on. And just I encourage people to go see the Iron Claw, still in theaters today.
Thank you very much. MikeMessier.com. Subscribe to One Man in a Camera Films, One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan YouTube channel, one Mike Messier. And thank you very much.